You're traveling through the unknown, a journey beyond the corners of reality, where the shadows whisper and the chill runs deep. Welcome to the dimension where your deepest fears are given form. This is The Midnight Mystery.
Welcome to The Midnight Mystery. This episode is called The Elevator Game. In each episode, we delve into the shadowed corners of our existence, bringing you tales of the eerie, the uncanny, and the downright terrifying. From the realms of the supernatural to the depths of the human psyche, no stone is left unturned, no dark secret left hidden. As the clock once again draws near midnight, prepare to embark on another adventure into the uncanny, the eerie, the horrifying, the midnight mystery. I remember that Halloween night as though it were yesterday. A chill hung in the air, filled with the scent of burning leaves and the sound of distant laughter. It was the first time I'd really hung out with Lucy, Jake, Emma, and the others, and I was nervous. I was the new kid in town, the outsider, trying desperately to fit in. We were gathered in Lucy's basement, surrounded by the glow of jack-o'-lanterns and the taste of candy corn. Lucy, with her wild red hair and contagious energy, was the first to bring it up.
"Have you guys ever heard of the elevator game?" she asked,
her eyes glinting with mischief. Jake, always the skeptic, scoffed. "You mean that urban legend? Come on, Lucy, you can't be serious." Emma leaned forward, her eyes wide with curiosity. "What's the elevator game?" she asked, her voice a mix of excitement and fear. Lucy's smile widened. "It's a game that's supposed to take you to another world. You follow these rules, press the elevator buttons in a specific sequence, and boom, you're transported to a different dimension." I could feel my heart racing. The idea was ludicrous, but something in Lucy's voice made it sound thrilling, even plausible. "You're joking, right?" I finally managed to stammer out. Lucy turned to me, her eyes twinkling. "What do you think, Max? Are you brave enough to try it?" I looked around the room, feeling the weight of their gazes. I didn't want to seem scared, especially not in front of my new friends. "Sure, why not?" I said, trying to sound casual. "It's just a silly game after all." Emma clapped her hands. "Let's do it. It'll be fun." Jake rolled his eyes but didn't object. I could tell he didn't believe in the game, but he was willing to play along for the sake of the group. We spent the rest of the evening planning our adventure, deciding on the perfect abandoned building to play the game in. The excitement in the room was palpable, mixed with a hint of fear. We were just teenagers, playing with legends and mysteries we didn't fully understand. The old abandoned building stood like a dark sentinel at the edge of town. Its windows were shattered, its walls covered in graffiti, and its past shrouded in whispers of ghost stories and urban legends. Perfect, we all agreed, for the elevator game. Lucy had printed out the rules and we went over them in the dim light of her flashlight, our faces pale and our voices trembling with excitement and fear. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "Step 1. We can go alone or with another player, but no outsiders can enter the elevator with us, and we can't leave at any point. If we mess up, we start over." Jake looked at the elevator, its doors slightly ajar, a gaping maw waiting to swallow us. "This is crazy," he muttered, "but I'm in." "Step 2, Emma continued, her voice trembling. "We ride the elevator from floor to floor in a specific sequence, up to the 4th floor, down to the 2nd floor, up to the 6th floor, back down to the 2nd floor, up to the 10th floor, and then down to the 5th floor. Remember, we can't get off at any of the floors." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What if someone else is in the building?" I asked. "We can't let them in the elevator with us," Lucy replied firmly. "No exceptions." "Step 3, Jake read, his eyes widening. "When we get to the 5th floor, if we encounter a mysterious woman, we must not look at her or interact with her. If we do, we might never return to the real world." I felt a cold shiver, and it wasn't from the October wind. This was starting to feel all too real. "Finally," Lucy concluded, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Step 4. We push the button to descend from the 5th to the 1st floor. If the elevator works normally, we exit and don't look back. But if it starts to go up instead of down, we're being allowed into another world." A silence fell over the group, punctuated only by the distant howl of the wind. We were standing on the threshold of the unknown, driven by a mixture of curiosity, bravado, and in my case, a desperate desire to fit in. "We don't have to do this," Emma finally said, her voice small. We could just go back to Lucy's and watch a movie or something.
No, Lucy said, her eyes blazing. We've come this far. We have to see it through.
I looked at my new friends, their faces pale but determined, and I knew there was no turning back. We were committed to this adventure, no matter where it led. With a mixture of fear and excitement, we entered the elevator, the doors creaking closed behind us. The game had begun, and the stakes were higher than any of us could have imagined. As we started our ascent, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were playing with forces we didn't understand. But the allure of the unknown, the thrill of the challenge, was too strong to resist. The elevator groaned as it made its way to the 4th floor. Inside, the silence was so thick I could almost taste it. Lucy, Emma, Jake, and I exchanged glances, our faces illuminated by the dim overhead light. "Here we go," Lucy said, as the doors opened briefly to the vacant 4th floor. "Now down to the 2nd floor." The ritual had begun, and there was no turning back. Each floor we visited seemed to become more oppressive, the air more stagnant. The game was turning out to be more unsettling than I'd ever anticipated. When we reached the 10th floor, I felt a chill that seemed to sink into my bones. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could see that the others were affected too. Emma's hands were trembling, and Jake's face was pale. "Now down to the 5th floor," Jake whispered, his voice barely audible. As the elevator descended, the sense of foreboding grew stronger. Then the doors opened on the 5th floor, and there she was, a mysterious woman standing just outside the elevator, her face hidden in shadow. "Don't look at her," Lucy hissed, turning away. I felt a compulsion to look, to see what lay beneath those shadows, but I fought it, staring at the floor instead. "Who are you?" the woman asked, her voice like ice. No one answered. "What are you doing here?" she pressed, stepping closer. "Press the button for the 1st floor," I whispered to Emma, my voice cracking. The woman's presence was suffocating, and I could feel her eyes on me, even though I wasn't looking at her. "Why won't you talk to me?" she asked, her voice taking on a desperate quality. I felt a tear slide down Emma's face as she pressed the button. The doors began to close, but the woman's hand shot out, stopping them. "Please," she begged, her voice breaking. "Don't leave me here!" The doors closed and the elevator began its descent. We were all shaking, the encounter with the mysterious woman having rattled us to our cores. Then, instead of descending to the 1st floor, the elevator began to ascend. "We're going up," Lucy said, her voice filled with both fear and wonder. "We're going to the other world." The realization hit us all at once. We had done it. We had played the game and won, or so we thought. As the elevator doors opened, we stepped into a world that was both familiar and utterly alien. The air was thick with an unseen menace, the shadows darker, the silence deeper. The other world was an eerie reflection of our town, but everything was wrong. Buildings leaned at impossible angles, the streets were devoid of life, and the air was so still it seemed to suffocate the very sound. Everything was covered in an unsettling pallor, as if color itself had been leached away. "What is this place?" Emma's voice trembled as she looked around, her eyes wide with terror. "It's like our town, but twisted," Jake replied, his voice equally shaky. "Look at that building over there, it's like it's alive." He pointed to a structure that seemed to pulse and writhe, its windows resembling unblinking eyes. "We need to keep moving," Lucy said, her voice firm but her face pale. "We have to find a way back." We began to make our way through the haunting landscape, our footsteps echoing in the silence, our breaths coming in short, fearful gasps. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every sound a warning. "Did you hear that?" Jake whispered, stopping suddenly. We all strained our ears, and I heard it too. A faint whisper, like a distant scream, carried on a non-existent wind. "We're not alone here," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "We have to be careful," Lucy said, her eyes darting around. "We don't know what's out here." We continued to move, but now with a heightened sense of urgency and fear. Our very presence seemed to attract the unseen forces that lurked in the shadows. "What's that?" Emma said, pointing to a shape that seemed to move at the edge of our vision. "Don't look at it," Lucy hissed. "Keep moving." But it was too late. The shape grew closer, and we could see it more clearly, a grotesque mockery of a human form, its body twisted and its face a mask of pure malevolence. "It knows we're here," Jake whispered, his voice filled with horror. "It can smell our fear." "We have to keep going," I said, my voice breaking. We can't let it catch us. We ran, the terror propelling us forward, the sinister being in pursuit. Our town, once familiar and safe, had become a nightmare landscape, and we were trapped in its twisted embrace. Finally, we found a building that seemed relatively untouched by the decay. We rushed inside and barricaded the door. "What are we going to do?" Emma sobbed, her body shaking. "How are we going to get out of here?" "We have to stay calm," Lucy said, her voice trembling but determined. "We have to rely on each other. We can't let the fear take over." "But what if we can't get back?" Jake asked, his voice filled with despair. "We will," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "We'll find a way. We have to." The grim reality of the other world had settled over us, and the terror of our situation had given way to a cold, calculating determination. We had to survive, and we had to find a way back. The twisted landscape was no longer simply a nightmarish curiosity. It had become a hostile terrain to be conquered. As the others looked to me for guidance, I realized that something had changed within me. The initial reluctance and fear had given way to a newfound bravery and resourcefulness. I was no longer the newcomer, the outsider. I had become the leader. "We have to find a way back," I said, my voice steady. "There must be clues here, something that can guide us." "Where do we even start?" Jake asked, his face etched with worry. "Old texts, symbols, anything that might hint at a connection between this world and ours," I replied. "We'll split up and search the town." As we ventured out, I could feel the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. The others were depending on me, and I couldn't let them down. Lucy and I explored an ancient library, its shelves filled with decaying books and scrolls. Hidden among the dust and cobwebs, we discovered texts written in a strange language, filled with symbols and diagrams that hinted at a pathway between worlds. "These could be the clues we need," Lucy said, her eyes wide with excitement. "We have to translate them, figure out what they mean," I said, my mind racing. As we delved deeper into the texts, we uncovered a series of trials and challenges, each one a step closer to our escape. The clues were cryptic and the path was treacherous, but I could feel a sense of purpose growing within me. I knew we could do it. But then tragedy struck. A scream echoed through the empty streets, and we all knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. We rushed to the source of the sound and found Emma's bag, abandoned in the middle of the road. "They've taken her," Jake said, his voice filled with horror. "We have to go after her," Lucy said, her eyes filled with determination. "But what about the clues?" I asked, torn between the need to save our friend and the urgency of our escape. "We can't just leave her," Lucy said, her voice breaking. "I know," I said, my heart heavy. "But we have to be smart about this. If we rush in without a plan, we could all end up captured." The decision weighed on me, but I knew that our survival depended on a careful balance between courage and caution. We had to save Emma, but we also had to find a way back. As we continued our search for clues, the knowledge that one of our own was in the clutches of the sinister beings haunted us. Every sound, every shadow seemed to taunt us, a reminder of the danger that lurked around every corner. The twisted alleys and paths of the Mirror Town had led us to the precipice of escape, but before us lay the final trial. It was a maze, not just of walls and corridors, but of traps and illusions. I could feel the malign intelligence behind it all, watching us, testing us. We stood at the entrance, our determination tempered with caution. "Emma is in there," I said, the weight of the decision to leave her behind still heavy on my heart. "And so is our way back." Lucy looked at me, her eyes reflecting a blend of resolve and pain. "We have to be smart about this. We can't let emotions cloud our judgment." Jake nodded, his face pale. "We've come this far. We can't fail now." We entered the maze, the air thick with an unseen menace. The path twisted and turned, the walls seemed to shift, and traps were laid at every corner. It was a puzzle designed to torment and confuse, a reflection of the twisted nature of this world. "Stay close," I said, leading the way, "and keep your wits about you." The maze challenged us at every step. Illusions played tricks on our minds, making us question reality. Traps threatened to ensnare us, to hold us captive forever. "Look out!" Jake yelled, pulling Lucy back from a pit that opened beneath her feet. "Thanks!" Lucy gasped, her eyes wide with fear. We pressed on, trusting each other, relying on our instincts and our bond as friends. I felt a surge of confidence, a sense of control. We were winning. We were beating the maze. And then we found Emma. She was standing in a chamber at the heart of the maze, her eyes vacant, her body twisted and changed. The other world had taken her, had made her a part of itself. "Emma," Lucy whispered, tears in her eyes. "Stay back," I warned, feeling the wrongness emanating from her. "I'm so sorry," Emma said, her voice a hollow echo. "I wanted to come back. I tried." We stared at her, horror and pity warring within us. We knew that saving her would mean remaining trapped forever. "We can't take her with us," I said, my voice breaking. "She's not Emma anymore." "But we can't just leave her," Lucy protested, her voice filled with anguish. "We have to," I said, tears in my eyes. "It's the only way." The decision was heartbreaking, but it was the only choice we had. We left Emma behind, a part of the twisted other world, a painful reminder of the cost of our survival. The way back was open to us now, the path clear. We made our way through the maze, the weight of our choice heavy on our hearts, the triumph of our escape bittersweet. We stood before the place where the elevator had once been, the method of our return within our grasp, yet seemingly so distant. The clues and trials had given us the knowledge, but the task still loomed large. I looked at Lucy and Jake, the weariness in their eyes matched by a determination that had been forged in the crucible of our shared experience. "We can do this," Lucy said, her voice steady. "We know the way back." "We have to be exact," I replied, focusing on the task at hand. "Every step, every gesture must be perfect. It's our only chance." We began the ritual, each movement deliberate, each word spoken with care. It was a process of summoning, a recreation of the initial game, but with a deeper understanding, an acknowledgement of the price we had paid. The air seemed to thicken as we continued, reality bending and twisting around us. Then, with a shudder that went through our very souls, the elevator appeared. We stepped inside, the familiar sequence now a pathway home. The journey back was silent, each of us lost in our thoughts, haunted by what we had seen, what we had done. When the doors opened and we stepped back into our world, the contrast was almost surreal. Everything looked the same, but we were different, forever scarred by our journey into the unknown. "We made it," Jake said, his voice a mere whisper, as if speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile reality we had returned to. "We did," I replied, feeling the weight of our choices, the burden of our survival. The aftermath was a struggle. We found ourselves unable to truly connect with our old lives, the memories of the mirror world always lurking, always present. Lucy and I would talk late into the night, our conversations filled with questions, our answers never quite enough. Jake became more withdrawn, the light in his eyes dimmed by what he had seen. And me? I was changed, no longer the timid newcomer, but a more confident and mature young man. I was haunted by our choices, by the loss of Emma, by the dark and twisted world we had faced. But I was also thankful, grateful for the bonds forged with my new friends, for the strength I had discovered within myself. "I can't shake the memories," Lucy said to me one night, her voice filled with a longing for something lost. "Neither can I replied, looking out at the world that seemed both familiar and foreign. "But we survived. We faced something unimaginable, and we came back. That has to mean something." "It does," she said, her hand reaching out to grasp mine. A year had passed since our terrifying journey into the mirror world, but the memories remained as vivid as ever. Halloween was approaching again, and the date brought a fresh wave of anxiety. I hadn't told Lucy or Jake, but the dread had been building inside me for weeks. One evening, as the three of us were hanging out at Lucy's place, I couldn't contain it any longer. "Do you guys ever think about that night?" I asked, my voice faltering. "About the elevator and everything that happened?" Lucy and Jake exchanged a glance. It was clear that they had been feeling the same way. "All the time," Lucy finally admitted. "Especially now, with Halloween coming up." "Yeah," Jake added, his voice distant. "It's like I can still feel it, you know? That world, those things, it's still there." We fell into an uneasy silence, each lost in our thoughts. We had survived, but the horror had never truly left us. It lingered, unseen and waiting, a shadow that we could never escape. A few nights later, curiosity and a desire to confront my fears drove me back to the old building. I told myself that I needed to see it again, to prove to myself that it was just a building, that the nightmare was truly over. But as I approached, my heart pounding, I saw something that sent a chill down my spine. The elevator lights were on. I stood there, frozen, staring at the glowing numbers. The terror of that night flooding back. The portal between worlds was never fully closed. It was still there, still waiting. I hope you enjoyed our episode. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thanks to you, our brave listeners. Your presence in this shared journey into the unknown is what fuels our stories. Your fascination is our motivation. Did this episode send chills down your spine? Then leave your comments, your thoughts and theories, your own midnight mysteries. Your feedback is the beacon that guides us through the uncharted territories of our stories. And if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to our channel. By joining the Midnight Mystery family, you won't miss out on a single chilling tale. As a subscriber, you'll be the first to know when a new episode lurks around the corner, ready to pull you back into the shadowy depths of the unknown. This is the Midnight Mystery signing off, leaving you with a simple reminder. When the clock strikes 12, fear the silence, for that's when our tales come to life. Good night, Midnight listeners. And remember, not all who wander into the dark are lost.